So, Brazil's government is taking Nintendo to court. This is a pretty big deal. The core of the issue is a practice called bricking. Now, when you hear that term, you might think of a device that is completely dead. It won't turn on, it's as useful as a brick, and sometimes that is what it means. But in this case, the definition is a bit broader. Brazilian regulators are calling Nintendo's policy of banning consoles from all online services an abusive practice. They argue that when you cut off a modern console like the Nintendo Switch 2 from the internet, you are effectively turning it into a very expensive paperweight. Nintendo has been given some time to respond, but this move sets the stage for a major legal battle. What does this bricking actually look like for a user? Imagine you just bought a brand new Nintendo Switch 2. You're excited to play the latest games, but then, for some reason, Nintendo decides to ban your specific console from their network. Suddenly, you can't access the eShop to buy new digital games. You can't download updates for the games you already own on a cartridge. You can't play online with your friends. The ban essentially severs the connection between your device and the entire ecosystem that makes it functional in the modern era. The console still turns on, but its core features are gone. The lawsuit claims this action is unfair. You paid for the hardware. You own the physical device. So should a company have the right to remotely disable so much of its functionality? That's the central question here. For many users, losing online access is not just a minor inconvenience. It fundamentally cripples the device they paid for. The Brazilian government believes that when a consumer buys a product, they should be able to use it. Stripping away its essential features without a fair process is seen as overreach, a company having too much power over the products it has already sold. This is what regulators are targeting as an abusive practice. The term bricking here is key. It's a powerful word that communicates a total loss of utility. While the console isn't literally a brick, its purpose as a gaming machine is severely compromised. It's like buying a smartphone that can't connect to the internet or an app store. You can still make calls maybe, but you've lost 90% of what makes it smart. The argument is that the online component of the Nintendo Switch 2 is not an optional extra. It's an integral part of the experience that customers pay for when they buy the console. Removing it is, for all practical purposes, breaking the product. To understand why this issue is so charged in Brazil, you have to look at the price tag. A new console is not a casual purchase there. We're talking about a significant investment. For example, a new Nintendo Switch 2 can cost around 5,000 Brazilian reals. That is a huge amount of money for the average person, often equivalent to several months of the minimum wage. This isn't just a Nintendo problem. High import taxes, complex regulations, and economic factors make almost all electronics incredibly expensive in Brazil. So when someone finally saves up enough to buy a console, it's a major event. This extreme cost creates a unique situation. It drives some users toward modifying or hacking their devices. If a single game costs a small fortune, some people will look for alternative ways to play. This isn't about not wanting to support developers. It's often a matter of economic reality. When the official way to participate in a hobby is priced out of reach for a large part of the population, a grey market for modified consoles and pirated games inevitably emerges. People want to play the games, and if the financial barrier is too high, they will find other paths. This is where Nintendo's banning policy comes into direct conflict with the economic realities on the ground. The company, understandably, wants to protect its intellectual property and stop piracy. Their method is to ban any console they detect has been modified. But from the consumer's perspective, this can feel incredibly harsh. You've just spent a massive amount of your savings on this one device. Then for trying to make gaming affordable for yourself, you risk losing your entire investment. The console you spent thousands on could be rendered nearly useless overnight. This creates a high-stakes environment for gamers. The high price, therefore, adds a lot of weight to the lawsuit. The argument isn't just about corporate policy, it's about fairness in a market where consumers are already stretched thin. If a company is going to sell its products for such a premium price, customers feel they should have more rights over the hardware they've purchased. The financial pain of getting banned is much more acute in Brazil than it might be in the United States or Europe, where replacing a console is still expensive, but not as financially catastrophic. This context is crucial for understanding why Brazil is taking such a strong stance. So, let's break down why losing online access is such a big deal for a console like the Nintendo Switch 2. It's not just about multiplayer. In today's gaming world, many physical cartridge-based games are not complete when you buy them. You get home, pop in the new game you paid for, And the first thing that happens is a prompt. A software update is required to play. This is often called a day one patch. Without an internet connection to download that patch, the game might be buggy, missing features, or in some cases, completely unplayable. Your physical media becomes a coaster. This reliance on the internet goes even further. Many physical games don't even have the full game on the cartridge to save on manufacturing costs. You might get the first few levels, but the rest of the game must be downloaded from the eShop. If your console is banned, you can't perform that download. You've bought a box with a piece of plastic inside that only gives you a fraction of the experience. Furthermore, the console's own operating system, its firmware, needs periodic updates to support new games and features. A banned console gets left behind, and it might not be able to run future games at all. This creates a situation where you might own a library of physical games, but a network ban from Nintendo can effectively lock you out of them. A game you bought and played last year might stop working after a system update that your banned console can't receive. This is the core of the argument. The hardware and software are so intertwined with online services that separating them is no longer possible. The product being sold is not just the console, it's the console plus the network that supports it. Taking away the network fundamentally changes the product you bought. We even see this in simple account management. There was a story where a user's Switch 2 was permanently banned from all services. The reason? It wasn't hacking. Their sister had changed the username on the account to something Nintendo deemed inappropriate. In this case, Twinklink. A simple, easily reversible username change led to a permanent, irreversible hardware ban. This shows that bans can be triggered by more than just piracy. It highlights the immense power Nintendo holds over a device you supposedly own, where a minor infraction can result in a major financial loss for the consumer. This isn't the first time Brazil has stepped up to challenge a major console maker on these grounds. They have a history of looking out for consumer rights in the tech space. A similar case was brought against Sony in the past for bricking PlayStation consoles. This history shows that Brazilian regulators are not afraid to take on giant multinational corporations when they believe consumer rights are being violated. It establishes a pattern of behavior, suggesting this lawsuit against Nintendo is not a random occurrence but part of a consistent legal philosophy in the country. They are building on a precedent they helped create. The outcome of this lawsuit could have a massive ripple effect far beyond Brazil. If the Brazilian courts rule in favor of the consumer and deem Nintendo's banning policy abusive, it will set a powerful international precedent. Other governments, particularly in the European Union and even the United States, will be watching closely. These regions also have strong consumer protection laws, and a successful lawsuit in Brazil could provide a roadmap for them to follow. It could embolden regulators worldwide to take a closer look at the terms of service that allow companies to remotely disable products. Success for Brazil could force Nintendo, and by extension other companies like Sony and Microsoft, to rethink their entire approach to platform security and user bans. They might have to find new ways to combat piracy that don't involve punishing the consumer so severely. Perhaps they would have to implement more nuanced systems, like temporary bans or bans limited to just online multiplayer, rather than a full network block that affects single-player games. The goal would be to find a balance between protecting their platform and respecting the consumer's ownership of the hardware they purchased. Ultimately, this case is about more than just video games. It's about the future of digital ownership. As our devices become more connected, who really has the final say over them? Is it the person who bought the device or the company that runs the servers? Brazil is forcing a conversation that we all need to have. The decision made there could shape consumer rights for a generation of technology, determining how much control we truly have over the expensive gadgets we bring into our homes. This isn't just a Brazilian issue, it's a global one. Despite the fact that Nintendo's practice of bricking devices is illegal in many countries, a surprising number of Nintendo fans remain indifferent or even supportive of the company's actions. For these fans, the focus isn't on the legal violations, but on protecting what makes Nintendo unique. Even though bricking devices can break consumer protection laws, supporters argue that Nintendo is simply defending its intellectual property. They claim that pirated games and hacked consoles undermine years of creative work by developers, and that strict measures are justified, even if they cross legal lines. For these fans, Nintendo's actions are seen as protecting the value of their games and the livelihoods of the people who make them, regardless of the law. There's also a strong desire for a fair gaming environment. cheating and piracy can ruin online matches and diminish the experience for everyone, and many fans are willing to overlook legal issues if it means keeping games fair. Supporters believe that bricking compromised devices sends a strong message: play fair or face serious consequences, even if that message comes at the cost of breaking the law. They argue this helps keep multiplayer spaces fun and competitive for honest players and see legal violations as a necessary evil. Many fans even view these actions as a crucial deterrent, despite the fact that courts in several countries have ruled against such practices. They worry that if piracy or cheating goes unchecked, it could discourage developers from investing in new games, ultimately hurting the entire Nintendo community. So even as Nintendo faces legal challenges, many fans see the company's hardline as preserving the ecosystem they love. In online forums and social media, some fans admit the punishment may be harsh and even illegal, but still argue it's a crucial step to maintain the integrity of the platform. For them, the risk of collateral damage and legal violations is outweighed by the need to protect the long-term health of the Nintendo experience. Ultimately, this perspective highlights a surprising truth. For many fans, the debate isn't just about laws or consumer rights. It's about the values and loyalty that shape the gaming communities we belong to.